Thank you for stopping by at the Movie Marquee. Our podcast reviews well-known movies and contains spoilers. The podcast may contain mature subject matter and mature language. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Quiet on set. Places, everybody. And action.
Welcome everyone to the Movie Marquee. Today's showing is the 1982 release, Rocky III. With me as always is Ted.
I've seen wrestlers as big as dinosaurs. You ever fought a dinosaur, kid?
And Ken.
To all my love slaves out there, Thunderlips is here in the flesh, baby. The ultimate male versus the ultimate meatballs.
And for a first time, our celebrity guest, Justin Cooper.
He ain't gonna kiss ya. He's gonna kill ya.
And I'm Eric. There is no tomorrow. I did it as Burgess Meredith, and it's not Burgess Meredith. That's all right. We'll keep it rolling there. We're going to have some fun today, folks. Like I said, we have a celebrity in our midst today. Justin. Say hi, Justin.
Hi, guys. How you doing? I didn't take the bait there, Eric. So.
That's all right. That's all right. You know, Justin, kick us off here with some plugs of your podcast that you do.
You can check out a couple shows that I do. One is called Geek Life HQ. You know, we've done a couple big interviews on it. It's kind of just like a geek lifestyle show where we talk about movies. Fantastic podcast, which actually Ken and Ted have been on. You talk about something that is like you're really passionate about, your fandom, that kind of stuff. We've had episodes on Resident Evil, the video game, Jurassic Park, top 10 Beatles songs, Metallica, that kind of stuff. And my other show is called The Epic Tales from the Sewers. It's all about Ninja Turtles. I interview the creators, including I've had Kevin Eastman on, just talk to the comic book artists, and I actually go through and do the voices of the characters when I cover the comics.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you on the Movie Marquee here, and hope you have some fun and talk a little bit about Rocky III. Ted, give us the particulars of this one.
Rocky III was directed and written by Sylvester Stallone. It has a running time of 100 minutes. It comes with a release date of May 28th, 1982, so we have a Memorial Day release. And it had a budget of $17 million, and it had a box office gross of $270 million.
Woohoo! Big money.
Wow.
Still making money.
Still making money.
Right up until the one we don't talk about. And
That's right.
For our cast, we have Sylvester Stallone reprising his role as Robert Rocky Balboa, Talia Shire as Adrian Balboa, Burt Young as Paulie Panino, Carl Weathers comes back as Apollo Creed, Burgess Meredith as Michael Mickey Goldmill, Tony Burton as Tony Duke Evers, with newcomers Mr. T as Clubber Lang, and Hulk Hogan as Thunderlips.
Very cool. We got some newcomers to this one here. What did the critics think of this one?
On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a critic score of 66%, so we're just below the certified fresh. And it has an audience score of 74%. So overall positive. Here again, going back and looking through the reviews here again from 1982, it was hard to find a whole bunch of actual critics' reviews on either side. The negative side will start with Vincent Canby of the New York Times. He said, Mr. Stallone, the star of Rocky III, as well as its writer and director, is hard put to find problems with which to freight his goldmine of a character, now that Rocky has everything. And Nigel Andrews of the Financial Times, here again, I said I was scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Wall Street Journal says Rocky III's a winner.
I'd actually take the Wall Street Journal over the Financial Times.
Invest in turtles.
Right,
like,
exactly. Rocky was a right hook that hit satisfyingly home. Rocky II was a good follow-up left. Rocky III is a redundant flurry of fisticuffs long after the match has been won and the referee has raised the victor's arm. On the positive side, we had Derek Malcolm from The Guardian. He said, it would be true to say that Stallone has improved as a director, delivering a short, almost staccato movie which zips through the whole fable fast enough to prevent familiarity breeding contempt. And Bruce McCabe of the Boston Globes said, in Rocky III, Rocky Balboa achieves a peace and contentment with both his strengths and weaknesses that he hasn't shown before. He's still growing.
Rocky IV, he finds peace with the Soviet Union.
He cures communism. I didn't find Gene Siskel or Roger Ebert's written reviews, but I did catch their review on their Chicago show Sneak Peeks, which is, again, the predecessor to At the Movies. Gene Siskel said, it's not as good as the previous two, and there's nothing new here. The most interesting relationships with Rocky go ignored. I found myself bored, missing the unique writing, and ultimately we are left with a tired and loud film.
Unique writing? Okay.
That's a stretch for the first two. But Roger Ebert said he enjoyed the fights, especially the final fight. The character that was Rocky is no longer there, but replaced by a louder version that's lost a human relatable dimension. He likes Apollo Creed. He's the best part of the movie, but he's confused as to why they changed him from a brash champion to a noble sage-like character. Both gave a negative no recommendation for the movie.
Wow.
And here again, that's before the thumbs up, thumbs down that we knew to come and love through At the Movies.
We'll assume it's thumbs down.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what would have turned into a thumbs down.
Bummer. I was hoping for a little bit better from the boys there.
Yeah, they were both really kind of negative about the whole experience. And it's interesting because we came off of Rocky II, where they were both so positive, and both even stated at the end of their review and for Rocky II that they were both looking forward to Rocky III.
Those guys, each loved Rocky II.
Oh, yeah, they loved it.
In their shorts.
I don't know what.
We have the option of watching all of the Rockies in a row too, where it's like back then when they're given this review, it's similar to your Lethal Weapons, where it's like if you're just watching 1 and 2, and then there's 3 and then 4, it's like all right, you can watch them all through and be like, wow, 2 is terrible or 2 is great, if you can. It's a circumstance where now you can look at them all as a fluid thing because I've never seen another movie where the last 5 minutes of the previous movie is the first 5 minutes of the next one. Never seen that.
That's one of the complaints that I have about at least these first 3. I don't even remember 4 if it starts off the same way. But
yes, it does.
It starts out with the fight, right?
It's just a weird way.
Stallone didn't direct 4, correct?
No, he directed 4.
Oh, he did do 4.
He didn't direct
5.
the one we don't talk about. Yeah, there is no.
We don't talk about when he fights Vanilla Ice.
We don't talk about that movie.
Yeah, only Suge Knight fought Vanilla Ice.
Oh, jeez, that wasn't a fight.
That's another story.
Well, Ken, give us the plot. Looking forward to it.
3 years after winning the World Heavyweight Championship against Apollo Creed, Rocky Balboa has a string of 10 successful title defenses. His fame, wealth, endorsements, and celebrity profile have increased, leading him to participate in an exhibition charity event against the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion, Thunderlips. No one does that much for charity but Bob Hope. Rocky's manager, Mickey, is worried about a new powerful contender rapidly rising through the ranks named Clubber Lang. During an unveiling of the statue in honor of Rocky, Rocky announces his retirement. While announcing his retirement, Rocky is publicly challenged by Clubber Lang. Clubber accuses Rocky of being a paper champion and intentionally ducking him as the number 1 contender. Lang then makes a sexually suggestive comment towards Rocky's wife, Adrienne, which infuriates Rocky, and he accepts Clubber's challenge. Mickey initially wants no part of it. Pressed by Rocky, Mickey confesses that he has handpicked his opponents for his title defenses in order to spare him from another beating like the kind that he got from Creed in their previous fights. He explains that Clubber will knock him into tomorrow and that Rocky won't last 3 rounds because he hasn't been hungry ever since he won the title and became civilized. Rocky, now knowing that he never really defended his title against the best competition, convinces Mickey to work with him for one last fight. Despite his promise to Mickey to live in the gym, Rocky trains in a Vegas-style environment that is filled with distractions and is clearly not taking his training seriously. In contrast, Clubber trains with ruthless determination. On the night of the fight, pandemonium breaks out backstage as Mickey is shoved violently by Clubber causing Mickey to suffer a heart attack. Rocky wants to call off the match, but Mickey urges him to go out there and do it, get it over with. Rocky is both unprepared and is severely distracted by his mentor's condition. The match begins with Rocky pounding Lang with several huge blows, looking for an early knockout, but he cannot put Clubber down due to his own lack of conditioning. Clubber quickly recovers and takes charge, dominating Rocky and knocking him out in the second round, winning the World Heavyweight Championship. After the match, Rocky tells a dying Mickey that the match ended in the second round with a knockout, without saying who the victor was. Mickey dies right after he says, "I love you, kid." Rocky lapses into severe depression over Mickey's death. Stopping by Mickey's gym, Rocky encounters his former rival, Apollo Creed. Creed offers to help train Rocky for a rematch against Clubber in exchange for a future favor, which Rocky accepts. Apollo then takes Rocky to the gym where he once trained in Los Angeles. Apollo is infuriated with Rocky's lack of effort. However, Rocky regains his focus after Adrian helps him come to terms with Mickey's death. Apollo and his manager Duke infuse Rocky's undisciplined brawling style with more skill and speed. After months of training, the rematch takes place. At the outset of the match, Rocky sprints from his corner, battering Lang with a level of skill and spirit that no one had ever expected. Rocky completely dominates the first round, leaving Clubber enraged and bewildered after the bell. Clubber gains the upper hand in the second round, and Rocky adopts an entirely different strategy that angers and confuses Apollo by intentionally taking a beating from Clubber. Clubber, who is used to winning with swift knockouts in early rounds, becomes increasingly furious over Rocky's taunts. He quickly exhausts his energy trying to finish Rocky off with repeated knockout blows, which Rocky blocks or dodges. With Clubber rattled and vulnerable, Rocky outboxes Clubber with a flurry of punches, culminating with a brutal knockout to reclaim the heavyweight championship of the world. Afterwards, Rocky fulfills Apollo's favor, a third private rematch with him. The film concludes without showing the result, but freezes into an oil painting of the two boxers simultaneously throwing the first punch, showing two equally skilled athletes. The end.
And a little Survivor music at the end there.
Oh, you gotta love the Survivor music in this movie.
Gotta love that. Ding, ding. All right. Let's talk about the first time we saw this movie. Let's kick it off with Justin. When was the first time you saw this one, Justin?
This may surprise you. The third one I actually saw about 5 years ago for the first time.
That surprises me.
I hadn't watched all the Rockies all the way through, and I did manage 2 different Blockbuster videos, but for some reason, I had not seen all of 3. So I'm like, okay, I've seen 1, I've seen 2, I've seen 4, and I've seen the one that you don't like, and I even saw Rocky Balboa, and I'm like, all right, how did I miss 3? Well, Mr. T and all that. So, yeah, 5 years ago, I ended up picking up the box set at Walmart, 1 through 5. I just watched them all the way through.
There's 5?
Actually, there's Rocky 8, Adrian's Revenge.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, if you're a Simpsons fan, so
or Airplane, Rocky 5,000.
5,000.
Oh, that's Spaceballs.
Spaceballs. That's right. That's right. Yes.
But
Yes.
Airplane 2 has that billboard of Rocky, and it looks like he's like 88 years old or something.
Right,
He's got
yeah.
all these
Weird Al
wrinkles.
did a song on his album, theme from Rocky the 13th.
Rocky the 13th.
Yeah, where he's fat and weak, what a disgrace. He bought the neighborhood deli, Kind of prophetic for when Rocky Balboa comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. How about you, Ted?
It would have been when I was a kid because I liked Rocky. So, and of course I liked Mr. T because I watched the A-Team. Rocky 3 is one that I've come to find out that this played on cable TV quite a bit. TNT and various other outlets have showed Rocky.
Well, most
3.
likely that's where Ken saw it, right?
Ken probably would have seen it on pay cable. So
Sure.
ultimately, what I've come to realize, I guess it had been quite a while since I had seen him, and I didn't think it was that long. Even with Rocky 3 here, I found myself remembering things that didn't happen in the right way. It's almost like seeing part of it like with fresh eyes again, especially Rocky 1 and 2. And I think I had mentioned that there were parts that I just either probably forgotten or just remembered them in a different way. So out of the whole series, this is one of my favorites.
I'm glad I'm not alone then.
Oh, yeah. Nope. I think you're in good company there. For me, this is obviously the third one in the series. As I've said before, I saw Rocky IV in the theater in 1985, second movie I ever saw in the theater. And then after that, I rented all of the Rockies probably in 1986 when they still had the big old cardboard boxes in the VHS. I remember renting all those, and I watched all of them. Kind of like Ted, I don't remember a lot of Rocky 3. I completely forgot that Hulk Hogan was even in this. I completely forgot that Thunderlip's character was even in there in that exhibition. So that was completely new to me. I probably haven't seen this movie since 1986. So for me, it's like kind of new eyes, too. What about you, Ken?
So amazingly enough, the first time I watched this was at church. We had a TV there and a VCR, and this might have been one of the first movies I ever saw on VCR. A bunch of the kids of my age, which probably at that time was probably around 10, 11 years old, somewhere around there. We're just all gathering and we're just all having a good time watching the Rocky movie because it's a lot of boxing in this movie, a lot of montages and training and a lot of fighting. When I think about it, I'm not sure if I saw Rocky 3 first or Rocky first. But since then, it was a mainstay on cable. I watched it all the time. It's been a few years since I recently watched it, but I watched it with my son the other day. And I was just quoting lines left and right. And he's just like, would you stop it? I'm trying to watch the movie. But I just can't help it because there's so many great lines in this movie.
I wonder if part of the reason that I have some of the memories that I have is because it was edited for television for time.
Is that you don't want to watch a movie that way the first time, man?
No, I get that, but I wonder if that's what's stuck in my mind because I've always thought that the movie started with the Thunderlips part. I can't remember if the regular cable television version that would have been edited for television, I wonder if that's where the movie started.
It's kind of interesting how this movie does start, because it does start with the repeat, and then it goes into a montage. We love montages, and this movie has tons of them.
I never remembered that. I wonder if that's what has kind of distorted my view of the Rocky movies, and that's what's stuck in my mind rather than the actual VHS version that was the real movie. I had seen it all of the movies so many times on cable that was just what stuck in my mind. Now, I don't have that same problem with 4, because 4 I've watched multiple times through streaming and through Blu-ray and everything.
Rocky 4 is such an iconic movie of people of our age, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree with that.
That is the one that sticks out of people of our age, somewhere, between that 40 and 50-year-old age group. I think Rocky 4 is the one that sticks out with everyone.
I think what it is with Rocky 4, it's kind of like more of our introduction. Rocky 4 is like the first movie I saw of Rockies in the theater.
Oh, that's true.
Most of us probably watched 1 through 3 very close together. I know a lot of people who get 1 and 2 mixed up all the time because it's in a lot of ways the same movie, because he's fighting Apollo in both movies, and some people didn't realize that Rocky even lost the first fight.
Yeah,
what's the mix-up? You've got red and white trunks and black and yellow trunks.
Yeah, I thought the whole chicken training sequence was in the original Rocky, and I forgot that basically Rocky didn't do a whole lot of training for the first Apollo Creed fight. I thought the whole training montage from 2 was in 1, so I was all discombobulated, but I do not have any confusion about what happens in 4. But these first 3 have been interesting, going back and watching them and being like, I don't remember this. And there's parts, we're going to get to some of the parts, especially with Paulie, I sure didn't remember.
Let's kick it off here with Paulie as we're starting to move forward with it. Obviously, Paulie's drinking again, clearly.
And I guess he thinks he's Marlon Brando from
a little bit,
The Godfather.
A little bit. Yeah, a little Marlon Brando there.
A very dark way to start his character.
It was.
I don't think so. I think it's a bring back to his character, because if we think about it, when we were reviewing 2, we were looking at it as Paulie was a different character than 1. We have
Paulie's an asshole,
but he became
a loan shark enforcer.
Yeah.
But he was doing okay financially in 2. It was Rocky who was going to him for basically looking for money. Paulie, who I guess the loan shark collecting business is taking a hit, and he's the one that's poor now, but he still thinks of himself as this 2-bit hood who carries more street cred with the mafia that he really
He's dressing
doesn't
like
have.
it's 1950 still.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he's actually doing worse. I think what it is, and this is kind of Paulie throughout the three movies, is he's better when he's doing better than you are. So right now, Rocky's
big
doing
time.
better than Paulie, and now Paulie's being jealous. He might be doing just fine. He might not. He might still be the enforcer. We don't know. I think the only reason that we don't have the loan shark in this movie is I think he passed away before this movie was made. So I think that's one of the reasons why we don't even know anything.
He lost his job. He's like, "Can I have a job?" You know,
Yeah,
like that's
yeah.
what he's doing. Like he's down on his luck.
And he's
Well, I'm just saying in
hugely
real life,
resentful
though,
of Rocky.
the guy who was the loan shark had actually passed away. He was actually a friend of Sylvester Stallone's, but I think he just wants a job because he wants to make more money. He wants to do something different. He's jealous. He's so jealous.
Clearly jealous.
He
yes.
moves in Mickey,
Oh, yeah.
which I don't blame him for being jealous to a certain extent. Rocky's your best friend. You married his sister, and then you move in the guy who didn't want, who kicked you out of your, who took
Here
your
we
locker
go,
away.
throwing that best friend card around.
But
I don't.
He is his
but,
best
but
friend.
here's the
know
thing.
about that.
Rocky says the same thing to Paulie that Paulie says to Rocky when Rocky's down on his luck. All you have to do is ask.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of a jab back at Paulie because Paulie didn't help Rocky when he was down on his luck. And two, after he's hit financial trouble, he is spiteful and resentful. It's bad.
They're both very proud.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a macho thing. It's a stereotype of the Italian American male is what it is.
Paulie doesn't have depth to him too. Like if you think about it, it's
Right.
like you could pull him out of like Archie Bunker mixed with Sonny from Godfather or something like that. It's like Italian stereotype. That's kind of him. He's gross. You know, it's
He's one dimensional.
he really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And there's small glimpses in 2 where you see him be a person. Where he's like, "Hey, Adrian, you okay?" And it's like, okay, you were the guy who was like literally yelling at her, and you're trying to sell your sister off in the first movie. So it's like now you're the caring, concerned brother. I'm like, I don't know if I buy that.
He's lost all depth from the first movie. Now it's just a caricature.
He's lost all depth. And how many IQ points do you think Rocky went up in this movie? Because
Tons.
man, he's doing commercials. He's walking and talking. He's putting words and sentences together.
American
Totally
Express.
different character.
I laugh
Yeah.
every time I see him in those heeled boots that he has.
Yeah.
Like I just like, and I start thinking of Nighthawks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I just recently watched it because I own that movie, Nighthawks, as well. But
I don't hate that movie. I like watching
I
it
like
for
it.
pure spectacle.
I like it.
What are they wearing?
I would say this about the Paulie character because I think, Justin, what you're saying about Archie Bunker is almost spot on because of the way he talks about
Black people.
the Los Angeles, black people in the Los Angeles neighborhood and stuff like that. It's like if you put Archie Bunker in that situation, that's exactly what he would have said.
He's got the cigar and everything too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Rocky is able to maintain that sweetness from the first one to a large extent, but not completely. He's got like that little bit where he's like, "Oh yeah, look at these people. Oh, I don't want to talk to them." And like, "Oh, maybe they don't want to talk to you." You know, it's like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. That's the Rocky from the beginning."
That's a great Stallone, man. You're right on. Hey.
My image of Paulie is Paulie from Rocky IV, and where he's more of
Having
a
fun with
lovable.
robots.
Yeah, he's more of a lovable type of goofy type of character. He's definitely not here.
No, he's a piece of crap.
Except the
I
time
mean-
where he's going over the horse racing form with his
Oh
His
yeah.
nephew. Yeah, I think that's funny. But for the rest of the movie, he's just a gigantic POS, man.
and I think they did that to make him the comic foil at the end. So like when Rocky's training and he's doing the swimming, he's doing really good. He comes up and he pulls
Pulls him
Paulie
in.
into
Yeah.
the pool with him.
I didn't
That was
care
funny.
for that.
It's kind of a setup for Paulie's redemption at the end because we see Paulie later telling Apollo that he did good.
Oh,
All of a
okay.
sudden, Paulie's changed. He's a better man now.
I actually hated the fact that Apollo thanks Paulie for the compliment. I wanted Apollo to just face wash him and just.
Sylvester Stallone wrote all these words, and Apollo Creed is delivering these lines and stuff, and I'm like, I can't picture Sylvester Stallone as Rocky, writing down Apollo Creed's lines and like him delivering them. I'm like, that blows my friggin' head off.
I think Sylvester Stallone, especially in Rocky, and even to a certain extent in Rocky 2. I think he does very good with dialogue. He loses the dialogue here. That's what Gene Siskel, I think, is getting at when he said what he said in his review as far as the writing here. Rocky is a kind of a lovable oaf, and that character's gone.
He's a simpleton.
Yeah, Eric, you hit the nail on the head. It's like he had intelligence beat into him by Apollo Creed.
He was like Boo Radley, you know?
Yeah.
There was a transference of Apollo Creed into Rocky Balboa because now he talks well.
Yeah.
And he's actually doing some of the things that Apollo would do. Like he wins a fight and then takes a bow. You know, he's doing these charity events. He's basically Apollo Creed now. He's not taking things seriously because he thinks he could beat everybody. That's why Mickey says that he's not hungry anymore, is because he's civilized.
And he's no longer...
The second time he tried to retire, too. So
like Michael Jordan.
He's no longer the Rocky Marciano type. He's turned completely into a Muhammad Ali type of champion. There's a couple of things that are really kind of taken from real life here. The opponents that he has after winning the title, there was a couple of different eras of boxing that is kind of spoofed here. And of course, this would have been before Tyson. There was a period of time where Joe Louis, when he was champion, they called it the Bum of the Month Club, where they would just bring whatever bum in. What they would do is they would artificially jack his rankings up to get him into a legitimate fight, and Joe Louis would knock him out in like 2 rounds. And so Joe Louis never had to really fight anybody there for a long time until Max Schmeling came along. And then you had the Nazis versus the Americans. That was Max Schmeling versus Joe Louis. And then the Bum of the Month Club came up again with Tyson. You had Tyson against the Bum of the Month until when he became champion. And then there's 2 versions of the Bum of the Month Club for Tyson. And then you have his post-conviction and post-release from prison Tyson, where that was the Bum of the Month Club as well, because he kept fighting all of these no-account fighters, essentially.
Well, you could say the same thing about Muhammad Ali, because like after we got past George Foreman, we kind of see a lot of mediocre fighters that Muhammad Ali
I wouldn't call Ken Norton Jr. mediocre.
But if I went down the list, I bet you I can pick out 4 fights during that period of time where those guys were completely bums.
Because you remember, Wepner was supposed to be a Bum of the Month, and Wepner turned into Rocky, where he took him 14 rounds.
By that time, Muhammad Ali's skill has diminished. I mean, by the time we get to Larry Holmes at the end of his career, Larry Holmes beat the crap out of him because he had nothing left.
Right.
I mean, that was
he beat him into retirement.
Right. That's just a start there of, I think, the decline from Muhammad Ali. And I think Sylvester Stallone is smart to use a lot of these storylines that he sees throughout boxing history.
People that like boxing like you guys can relate to all this.
Yeah. But the runs out after Rocky 3, though. So.
Rocky, Sylvester Stallone even said that he ran out of material for Rocky 3 and 4. And so that's why it's more montage-based and more training and actually more fights, because this is the first movie we get to see more than one fight.
There's some pretty good fights in this thing, too.
And I think there are.
We see straight fights. We have 2 rounds in the beginning, Clubber, and we have 3 rounds with Clubber at the end, but they're full rounds. They're not like brief periods or just like a glimpse of around here and a glimpse of around there. It's a full fight, and I think that changes the dynamic of what we're watching here. So,
right.
Like you said, because the fact that we don't have the dialogue that we're used to having in the first 2 movies, it's replaced with action, and for some of us, that's a good thing.
It really does. But it's a double-edged sword, because then you lose some of what made both of the movies not iconic, is that's not the right word. It's special. More endearing is what I was looking for. Because even here, Adrian is not nearly as fleshed out anymore as she was
in this
before.
Movie? I didn't even know she was
right. It's so weird. It's so weird. You're like, who's this character?
I mean, Adrian's purpose here really is the scene on the beach,
which makes no sense.
That makes perfect sense.
Here,
I like
here
that
is
scene.
Adrian. Adrian in the second Rocky movie doesn't want Rocky to fight at all. And amazingly enough, he's had 10 title defenses, and she's happy that he's retiring. And then he doesn't want to fight anymore. And she's like, no, you better go and fight because there's going to be marital issues if you come back home if you don't fight because you're going to be sitting there thinking about this. She didn't think about this in Rocky 2 at all, that this would bother him.
Rocky 2, he couldn't get a job to save his life, okay?
Yeah.
And he realized all he can do is boxing. By the time you hit Rocky 3, he is rolling in money. She is rolling in money. He is happy because he keeps winning all of these fights that are obviously set up for him to win. But he is happy. He's not getting his face bashed in every time. She is happy. Well, yeah, this is a different fight. But in the end, she knows he is a boxer. That is what he is. That is all he is. That is what he knows. And if he is not boxing, he is not happy.
I'll prove my point more when we get to Rocky 4, and then she reverts back. It's just inconsistent, Adrian. It's really hot, Adrian.
Well,
she's really
Rocky
nice to look at in this movie.
Someone died in the ring. That amps it up to a whole new
Rocky
level.
If he dies, he dies.
He got the worst beating of his life. He was out. He looked bad, and she doesn't want him to go through that again, especially with the fact that he's had eye injuries before. And
which he no longer has.
No longer has them.
They said he
Looks
fixed
good.
his face.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Paulie said that, yeah.
Yeah, which I don't know if that means he got plastic surgery or whatever case.
Right.
I think he just lost a lot of weight because he's very, very thin. I mean,
he's skinny,
He looks good. I mean, this is Sylvester Stallone from here on out where he's got that muscular body.
He said that he only had 2% body fat for this movie.
I believe it.
You can tell it's as artificial as Hulk Hogan's muscles. But
wow.
It's the first HGH accusation of the night.
I agree with both Eric and Ken here. Believe that she's changed. Her character changed here, and we don't really have a basis as to why, other than it seems like basically greed that she's changed her tune. My biggest question about the whole Adrian character, why does she have to go to training with him in Los Angeles? And why do they have to leave the kid behind? They completely abandon the kid, and there goes mom and dad. They're going off to train. Why does Adrian have to be there to train?
Yeah, because Adrian wasn't there in Rocky 4, was she?
Not till the end, but yeah. I like every time he leaves his kid turns like 4 or 5 years older to the next movie.
Yeah.
We're in the same time
And his
period,
glasses are getting thicker and thicker every year, too.
It's a shame because Adrian is a wonderful character.
Yes.
And especially in the first movie. She is perfect. And the second one, she becomes a little whiny and a little... I just had problems with her. And then the third one, she's just non-existent. She's in the stands, having a good time, dancing with the crowd, like, my husband can't be beat, that type of deal. And it's like, wait a second, this is the same Adrian that every time he gets into the ring, she's like scared to death for him? It all changes.
She's not the romantic lead Apollo Creed is. And if you don't believe me, watch the montage on the beach.
Oh, yeah. Right at the end where they embrace each other in the water. So.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you that is consistent with the montage in 2, because I just watched 2 again today. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he did the same jump where he's like giddy and like jumping up, doing his training and all that. So I'm like, all right, it checks out. So
they have a really weird obsession with their thighs. They like focusing on those two men's thighs, and
they're like flapping when they run.
We'll get to that whole farce.
That's just crazy. Yeah.
You mean like when he outruns him and he's like clearly like half a foot taller, and that would never happen?
It is the most. It's the most unbelievable part of the whole movie.
Yeah, it's good spectacle though. I mean,
yeah. But it's completely unbelievable.
If you would have at least started it off with a race and they were a little bit closer instead of Apollo just totally like Apollo's beating him running backwards. I mean, and then you're going to convince me that Rocky's going to be able to beat him on a straight race.
Before we get into Apollo,
just go into it,
Rocky
man.
Here,
just do it. Go into it.
That whole scene with Adrian on the beach. This is another thing that I think that this is where Gene Siskel was kind of right. I do like the scene, but their acting, Stallone and Talia Shire's acting there, is one of the most brutal parts of the first 3 movies. They're both very wooden, and Stallone can be wooden anyway.
No.
But even she doesn't have the character that she has in the first 2 movies, where it just seems off. The acting seems off. I don't know if there maybe was another cut that they had of that might have been better, but both seem very wooden here.
It seems like
in
it
that
was
scene.
overacting, and maybe that's because she doesn't have barely any lines up until that point.
It seems more like we're reciting lines than acting. But the whole sentiment of that scene, I think, is deserved. He has to come to terms and admit that he's scared. Personal doubt is a good thing, and I'll give my another opinion later on. But if we're getting into Rocky and Apollo, I actually like this relationship that Apollo turns into. I think Apollo's awesome here. The problem I have is the montage scene. Let's face some hard facts. Carl Weathers was an NFL athlete. There is in no world where Sylvester Stallone will beat him in a straight up race. You can see that in the first time they race. Carl Weathers leaves Sylvester Stallone in the dust. Why they continually to show the leg muscles is beyond me in this whole sequence. But you can see he's trying, and he dusts Sylvester Stallone, and to the point where Sylvester Stallone has to quit. He's running against an NFL athlete. When Rocky
You're
they
loving
do the
this, aren't you? You're just
when they
loving
do
this.
the montage where Rocky keeps up with Carl Weathers, if you watch it real close, you can
Carl
see
Weathers is on a treadmill while
he
Rocky's
is
running.
he is looking out of the side of his eyes to make sure that he's not dusting him. And his muscles are not rippling like they do in that when they first do it. And it's so obvious that he's just treading water trying to
He's
make
just
sure that he
jogging,
doesn't
isn't he?
dust
He's
him.
just la-di-la-di-la.
But let's not forget that Sylvester Stallone is a fast runner. Granted, I don't think he wins this race by any means. Rocky can run extremely fast.
What are you basing that on?
On the documentary of Rocky,
Okay.
where the crews and everything said that he was extremely fast. In fact, when they were in the van filming him, the van had to speed up because he was going as fast as he could.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, whatever. They're being paid to say this. Carl Weathers wins 100 times.
I agree with you on that, but you're dismissing like Rocky should be like a half a mile behind him.
It's ridiculous. They should have never been put in that situation. Probably the best acting in all of the Rocky movies combined. Is Carl Weathers making that last
Best
race seem
actor
believable?
nomination. Carl Weathers.
And I get it, but don't forget that Apollo Creed is supposedly 8 years older than Rocky is too. So
And
he
Carl
is
Weathers
older,
is actually 2 years younger than Sylvester Stallone.
but in the movie,
No kidding.
In the movie, he's older, and in the movie, he hasn't.
Hence why he's not going to be fighting Clubber Lang himself.
Yeah, because he's been out of boxing for 3+ years. So there's a lot of things here if you would have matched them up stride for stride and ended it that way, I would have been great. But to have him go past Apollo, that's a problem. But if you had them running together, that looks awesome. When they're doing the mirror boxing, where they're both doing mirror boxing together, and they're going and they're step for step, that is great. I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of that montage.
Is really cool.
And so
and
I
that's
think
actual boxing stuff. I'm all good with that. My thing
Doesn't
is
this make you want to watch Predator, though?
It's pure. It's pure athleticism. The race down the beach is pure athleticism.
Is this
It's
your
so
biggest
obvious.
pet peeve of the movie?
I actually love it
Oh my
because
goodness.
it makes me laugh
All
so
right.
hard
It is
watching
silly.
Carl Weathers trying
I'll
to
tell you
make
what,
that look believable.
I'm good. I have to go back now and watch it and watch Carl Weathers to see if he's looking out the corner of his eye as he's running. I gotta watch this again.
All you have to do is watch what they're highlighting. They continually highlight the legs. You can watch the muscles in his legs differ so much from the first run to the second run. It's comical.
You need Rocky to eventually
like
beat him
exactly
for his training. But I know it.
But
works.
he does that in the ring. So like when they're sparring, he turns Apollo around. That's good enough.
Apollo then has imparted the wisdom of fighting like an actual boxer to Rocky. You're exactly right, Ken. When he slips and ducks and comes on the other side of Apollo and gets between him and Apollo in the ring and the ropes, that's one of those things where you're like, okay, Rocky's got it now. He understands how to actually box. They just didn't need the race thing.
That's a good little moment, too.
Outside of the race, the montage itself is wonderful. Him doing all those different things, swimming and with the ball. And I love montages. I think this movie should have just been called Rocky III, the montage. It's full of
It's like a
just-
film on a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
Is this the movie that started the whole rest of the 80s montage thing? Because
I wouldn't
you
doubt
get
It had
get
to
the-
coming out in '82.
think
you
so,
get this
yeah.
in every movie following. You get it in the
This
Karate
and
Kid.
Chariots of Fire, right?
Yeah, so maybe
That was
maybe
before.
that was the first one. But you get
Yeah.
all of these montages after that are basically copycatting what we see here in Rocky 3.
But these montages, especially the first one where we see him winning all these fights, the balance between him winning his fights and showing Clubber Lang winning his fights and training, going back and forth and showing Rocky in love with Adrian.
Did
and
you
all these
notice
other things.
that Clubber Lang is training like Rocky trained in the first one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love how they portray that as for the first fight, because even though it's kind of crazy, the Eye of the Tiger thing, even though Apollo continually says it throughout the movie, which is kind of annoying, the fact that they use that song, I get it. You understand. That's why Apollo doesn't have to say it so often. You understand the Eye of the Tiger. Clubber has it. Rocky doesn't. You get hit over the head repeatedly, especially for the first fight. You know that Rocky's going to get his lunch handed to him.
Here's the problem with that Eye of the Tiger thing. So Apollo says that when we fought last, I trained hard, but you had that Eye of the Tiger. No, Rocky did not have the Eye of the Tiger when he came into
Yeah, he
that
did.
ring.
He had the
No,
jacket.
He did not have.
He did.
Well, he had
Yeah,
the
the
jacket,
jacket.
but he did not have that edge. In fact, when Apollo and him touch gloves, he says, "You're going down," and he gives this look like, "Yeah, probably so." He doesn't have this Eye of the Tiger. So every time he
He
says,
had it
this,
in the
fought.
first movie. He at
Yeah.
least had
maybe
it
in the first movie he did, but in the second movie he definitely does not have that look.
The later rounds, maybe. Like, if
maybe
you think about it that way, the
maybe
later
it
rounds he did.
changes. Apollo has that Eye of the Tiger look when he's going to the ring. In fact, Apollo has that look throughout the whole 15 rounds, and that's the reason why he loses, is because he wants that knockout so bad he doesn't realize that he's tired and he's beat up.
The first
Yeah.
5 minutes of this movie made me hate the end of Rocky 2 even more. I still
Yeah.
hate the fact that they both went down. It's ridiculous and stupid.
Yeah.
Rocky
It is.
But
goes
we
down
talked about
way
that.
too often. Just
Yeah.
way too, like, oh, first round, he's down. Oh, he's back up. I'm like, wait a minute.
He's
Why don't you
down.
pace yourself there, guys?
The whole thing that he has to climb the ropes to get back up, and that's how you end a boxing match, is completely garbage in my opinion. Rocky should have won based off of basically knocking Apollo Creed out. But
Mhm.
as far as if we're going to get into Clubber Lang, I think he's extremely interesting, barring the fact that he probably would have been suspended for life for doing some of the things he does in the ring, where he continually hits the guy as they're down on one knee. That's
That would have been
assault.
disqualified.
That,
Yeah, he would
that crosses into the line of assault in the ring.
He's such a convincing actor, though.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
As a boxer, you look at like the physical choreography of him as opposed to like Sylvester Stallone. You're like, holy crap, this guy is legit.
Mr. T will never do another role and be as good as he is as Clubber Lang. This is the top of the mountain for him, and unfortunately, it's his first movie.
Not the
And-
18?
Not
No,
DC
I
Taxi?
liked the
DC
18,
Cab?
but
DC
you know,
Cab?
it was
Yeah.
A-Team was schlock. As a kid, the A-Team was awesome. It was the best thing on TV.
Now you look at it and
for
you're
a
like,
kid.
oh my goodness.
It's bad.
Horrible.
But as
Big
a
Dwight
bad
Schultz guy over here, so
Okay.
as a bad guy in Rocky 3, and I distinctly remember this as a kid being like, that's not Mr. T. Because the Mr. T that I knew was Mr. T from WrestleMania 1, where he's friends with Hulk Hogan, and he's a good guy from the A-Team. And to see him as this, he is a bad guy. He's the prototypical bad guy here. Mr. T is awesome as Clubber Lang, and almost makes me wish that they would have done something a little bit different. And Ken, you and I believe, Eric, you had mentioned this when we did Rocky 2. It would have been more interesting to see Rocky 2 in the eyes of Apollo Creed. If Rocky 3 is a showcase for Clubber Lang, he's so convincing as a villain that he makes you want to know more about him.
Mhm.
And that, I think that's the testament to any good bad guy. When he's on screen, he demands attention, and you feel it. You want Rocky to beat him up. And you understand why Mickey doesn't want Rocky anywhere near him. Although I will say Mickey is a little bit old because all 3 movies he tells Rocky that he's washed up and he's not going to amount to
Yeah,
anything.
right.
I disagree with you about Clever. Here's the reason why I disagree. He's a cartoonish villain. I don't need
disagree.
to know more about him because all he does is he's mean. We don't see any different facets of his life. We don't see any type of different emotion. All we
Like
see,
his work ethic?
all we see is determination.
You want to see his home life and stuff?
We don't see home life. We don't see him happy. We don't see him sad. We don't see anything about him except that he's just mad. Constantly
That's what
mad.
you want. That's what you need to see.
Right, and that's what you
see
want.
him relentlessly training, though.
And
like
I agree.
relentlessly
I'm
sacrificing.
not saying I don't like the character. I love the character. What I'm saying here is I don't need to know more because the fact he's one-dimensional. If I get to know more, that might take away from all that evilness that he represents. To me, out of all oppositions that he's had, Rocky has, Clubber Lang is the hardest one. It's the most evil one. I mean, Drago and Four, we could talk about that later, but he's kind of a manufactured product. Whereas Clubber is this guy who has this determination. He's willing to sacrifice everything to win that championship. And I think that's what makes his character endearing. Add more to that, I think that takes it away and he becomes less intimidating. And that's why I disagree with you.
Are you saying it's kind of like the Darth Vader
Yes.
conundrum, where the more you learned about him, the less menacing he became? I can understand that to a certain extent. There's a way that can be done that would not make him lose his edge. I think
the Karate Kid series does, like Cobra Kai does a very good job of doing something like that. But it's very rarely that we get a backstory on a ruthless guy. We want Rocky so badly to beat this guy because he is everything that represents what we need to overcome.
But ultimately, we shouldn't hate Clubber Lang because he is the desire. I mean, he does show the passion. He's just mean as hell doing it.
It's just like what Clubber Lang says about Rocky. I don't hate him, but I'll beat down any man that tries to take what I got. And it's the same thing with us as Rocky fans. We don't hate Clubber, but because he took something away from Rocky, we want Rocky to beat the crap out of him.
You also want Rocky to get back to where he was, to get his head straight. And that's Clubber Lang right there, because Clubber represents everything Rocky was going into the fight, where he was hungry and he was challenged and he was trying to achieve something. And Rocky has grown complacent and lazy and gone Hollywood, as you would say. That's why he has to get past Clubber. And it's really about the Rocky versus Rocky sort of conflict.
He becomes Floyd Mayweather. I know Ted will enjoy that. He fights guys that they're good fighters, but they're not great fighters. Well, Mayweather has always been accused of fighting people past their prime or before their prime.
Oh, like Jake Paul?
It's not good enough.
That we won't even go there. That's
go there. That doesn't even classify as a boxing
farce of epic proportions.
Well, you mean like fighting someone who's not in his weight class, or fighting someone like Manny Pacquiao, where it's like
5 years
right,
later,
they're way past, or fighting Canelo Alvarez before been established as a champion. I get though what Mickey's trying to do here for him. I don't like what Mickey does. I understand why Rocky's upset with what Mickey does.
But it makes sense, Ted.
It's kind of
if you think about it, in boxing in general, we've seen this. We just talked about Mayweather. Sugar Ray Leonard was like that. Sugar Ray Leonard would wait until somebody was in a perfect situation.
Like Marvin Hagler?
Like Marvin Hagler. Yeah. I've never said that wasn't the case. I'm a big Sugar Ray Leonard fan, and Ted knows it. But I know for the fact that Sugar Ray Leonard waited till Marvin Hagler was
lost a step or two
to beat him. And that's basically what Mickey's character here does with Rocky. He gives him opportunities to win, to keep it going, because what Rocky did was amazing and probably should get paid for what he did. But Clubber himself, he probably deserves this more than Rocky ever has, because Clubber has been doing this all his life, working hard.
He's bona fide.
Yeah. Whereas Rocky, he just got a lucky
chance. Right.
Yeah, just a random chance, but Clubber deserves this.
I love Clubber Lang. I think it's kind of crappy. Well, I don't know that he wouldn't have gotten a rematch.
We don't know what happens to him after this movie.
Sylvester
he moves to
Stallone,
DC and runs a cab.
Yeah,
I guess Sylvester Stallone did do an interview in which they asked, and I guess Sylvester Stallone answered that Clubber Lang became a born-again Christian and became a pacifist. Some weird
Actually,
shit
that doesn't
like that.
that makes sense to me. You know why? Because I think when you go from one
Extreme to the
main
other.
extreme to the other, exactly.
That's what.
Well,
it's
did you
weird.
notice he didn't really use foul language?
No,
like when
never.
He would talk,
He's like,
No.
give
he
me a
was so
jab.
descriptive.
Give me a jab.
He proposed sexual innuendos to Rocky's
Yeah,
wife.
he
The
did. That
only
was-
time Mr. T has ever said anything about like sex or anything along those lines
And all he
was
really
that
said was,
little
be a
bit.
real man.
Mr. T took his mom to a viewing of the movie, and she walked out because she looked at him and she says, "I didn't teach you to talk to women like that." And she walked out of
Wow.
the movie and never saw it.
He
But-
made a record, and like the hit song on it was "Mother."
Yeah. He's been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, into the celebrities wing of the WWE Hall of Fame. And
Him and Pete
his-
Rose, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, he was. Usually, when the celebrities are inducted, they give, like a 5-minute speech. He went on for 25 minutes, and it was all about his mom. It's become a running joke that Mr. T's going to talk about his mom.
He's a big mama's boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh,
But now
yeah,
he sells
big time.
appliances for Aaron's.
Bad
Aaron's
insurance.
Mr.
Him and
T's
Man
great
Cow.
here. Yeah, him and Man Cow.
Two names from the past.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we want to brief about Hulk Hogan? Since we're talking Clubber Lang and wrestlers?
I don't think we need to touch Hogan too much.
Really?
Good old Terry.
I think we've
I'm just
talked
going
a
to tell
lot.
you guys, Apollo Creed is my favorite character in all of the Rocky movies.
And you're right to say that because he's
Yeah.
got the best acting probably out of everybody that in the series.
Yeah, he was
And-
able to keep Sylvester Stallone looking like he could actually beat him in a foot race. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the best. It's the best acting in any of the movies.
He works as that boxer who wants that favor for helping Rock regain the title. Everybody here who's watching the movie knows that Apollo wants a rematch. Rocky's clueless. He doesn't know what this favor is, but let's be honest here. We all know what it is. He wants
And
I'm
the
Sexual-
sure
favor.
also-
Paulie knows.
Sexual
And
favors.
let's all be very honest here. If we're talking in real world terms, Apollo won the first match. Rocky won the second. If we're talking real life boxing, there's no way that there's not going to be a third fight.
Of course.
Right.
But it's going to be a trilogy, and it was kind of goofy to have Rocky be that oblivious. Oh, what's the favor? It's like, come on, you know what the favor is going to be. I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, he's going to ask for a legitimate fight, and that we have Rocky 4. Of course, that's not what happens.
That's
But
what should have happened, but it doesn't happen.
I don't know. I mean,
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, we
And
just
I
rather
don't
see
think we've-
Apollo get killed in Rocky 4.
Or that should have been
Spoiler.
Rocky 5. Should have been Apollo getting killed by the Russian.
There is
right?
no, well, yeah, because that would have been
Push
nice
it
for
off
Rocky
one.
5,
Push it
since
off
how
one.
Rocky 5 never got made.
It
That
exists.
should be
It's-
that should be a
It
podcast.
exists like
Rocky
Clerks 2
5 does
exists.
not exist.
I can't wait until you guys talk about Rambo.
Oh.
You know?
Ugh.
Like I said,
Oh,
Rocky
uh,
5 exists the same way Clerks 2 exists.
Oh,
No,
that's
no.
not fair.
One
That's
is a
not
real
fair.
movie. The other is a fictional movie that doesn't exist.
You're going to act like
Clerk-
Rosario
we know-
Dawson isn't the apple of everyone's eye.
We know Clerks 2 exists. There's no evidence that Rocky 5 exists. And you will never be able to convince me that it does. Mickey's death, I think it has the right impact on Rocky. It would have been nice for Rocky to be able to rectify his feelings about feeling betrayed by Mickey. Having that before Mickey dies, I think, would have made much more sense. And then you don't necessarily have to have that awkward scene between Rocky and Adrian on the beach. Maybe Adrian can stay at home with her son while Rocky trains. To me, it's unfulfilling that he dies. I understand why they have him die. It's so Apollo Creed can come in and teach Rocky a better way to fight. In that sense, it works. I think having him die before the Clubber Lang fight, I think it betrays the first Clubber Lang fight because
Yes.
it kind of makes it seem like that's why Rocky got knocked out, is he gave up. I think that's garbage. I think Clubber Lang just beat the living hell out of it.
He would have lost no matter what. He wasn't prepared for the power of Clubber Lang. What I'd like to see, though, is maybe after the fight, they're going back and forth, and Mickey has the heart attack after the fight, but doesn't die. But he ends up in the...
Let me throw
ICU.
this scenario at you. Do you guys think that Clubber Lang killed Mickey?
No. He
No.
had a bad ticker. It was alluded to during the Thunderlips fight, where Mickey starts to have a minor heart attack there. You have to be pretty gullible not to know that something's going to happen to him after he has that little mini heart attack during the Thunderlips fight.
Was it Burgess Meredith couldn't get the contract renewed for Rocky IV?
No, I think it was
I think it's just the way it was written.
I'm just saying that maybe it's because his age. I mean, at this time, Burgess Meredith is 75, 76 years old. Granted, he lives to be, I think, 90, 91.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I think it's his age.
He makes a bunch of movies after this.
Yeah, this is like far from his last film.
This was lazy writing.
This isn't out. That's why I'm saying that I would rather seen him have a heart attack at the end, and then he go to ICU, and then Apollo still trains him. But then let's say he's able to watch it on closed circuit TV and sees that Rocky wins. Then they can have that conversation that you just talked about. No, he doesn't have to die. They had that conversation that you were talking about, Ted, where they reconcile all that stuff about the fights that he had and not in protecting him, and they reconcile them. But then you fade that out, and he isn't brought back again because Mickey's done. Mickey's had the heart attack. Mickey doesn't have to be back in Rocky IV. You could bring him back if you want as like a fatherly figure that gives advice. The movie that Ted says that doesn't exist, they bring Burgess Meredith back as Mickey in Rocky V. Makes no freaking sense whatsoever.
I think what you're saying, it's unfulfilling because when Mickey dies, Rocky makes a choice to forgive him on his deathbed for what he did. He never gets that catharsis that you're talking about that he could have. That longing is what contributes to him working with who was, his rival, Apollo Creed. Mm-hmm. That longing is what kind of spurs him along. Like, his character is moving because he's like you said, I'm a boxer, it's what I do. I'm a fighter. Do I really have what it takes to beat this guy?
Right.
And I think with that death and that sort of unsatisfaction, that's what gives him the drive to go and do this again. Because rightfully so, he shouldn't get back in the ring with him. He could just be done.
I agree with you 100%, and I love the use of the word catharsis here. Ultimately, I think even though the acting is a little bit stunted between Adrian and Rocky, it's not Rocky and Adrian that should have been having that conversation. It should have been Rocky and Mickey having that conversation, and even if you have him pass away and Mickey's last words to him are, "I know you can do it."
Yeah.
And then he passes away. I think then the whole training up montage of him actually getting what Apollo's teaching, I think it means a lot more rather than have it the way it goes. It just seems a little lazy to me.
Do you think Mickey was a bad boxing coach?
A little bit.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about this because, like, with all the prospects and stuff that he had, I was just thinking, I'm like, it doesn't seem like he was that good at what he did.
He never really taught Rocky how to actually box. I mean, that's why Apollo Creed basically turns him into the Elephant Man in the first movie. I mean,
yeah, he does.
It's basically just stand and fight. A stand and fight fighter is going to get tore up by somebody who can actually box.
I think Mickey was old school, and I think Mickey knew how to do things.
He was like Jack Dempsey old school.
Yeah, he
Definitely
was
old
Jack
school.
Dempsey, and boxing had evolved. Like we were talking about in Rocky II, he's training with a chicken. Whereas
Good point.
Apollo is, he focused more on speed and movement and technique, like he said. I think he was good for the match against Apollo just because Rocky was completely different.
They never played up the ultimate style match, which was the fact that Rocky was a southpaw.
And he never protected his body.
He didn't protect his face either. So
yeah,
well,
I mean yeah.
There is
Apollo,
that.
like I said, Apollo turns him into the Elephant Man.
Every time I think of Mickey, I think of those Brisk iced tea commercials.
That's
Remember
brisk, baby.
That's brisk, baby.
Wow.
Yeah, I just keep on thinking about that when I was watching this film.
Wow.
I just kept on thinking about that. Yeah.
You just want him to drink some
something.
iced tea and just spit one out. That's brisk, baby.
Yeah,
I think
remember
of Saturday
those.
Night Live, the death of Superman, the funeral, where he's going, wah, wah, wah. And then they go, stop laughing. And he goes, this is also how I cry. Wah, wah.
That goes back to Eric's Burt Young conundrum.
Yeah. I have it written down here. Burt Young. So
I will say, though, that these fights are just awesome. The first two fights, I like the first fight. The second fight, I had problems because they would throw punches and make punching sounds and there was no connection there. Here, it actually looks like there are actually punches being thrown and people getting hit. When Kleber misses Rocky, because Rocky's got that skill now, it's cooler because the punches look real. They look like they're going to hurt. I think you get probably a pure 12 minutes of real boxing. Actually, I won't say it's real boxing, but I will say it's action boxing.
It looks
choreographed very
a lot
well.
realer. Yeah. There's only one part that I don't buy, and that's there is one point where Rocky leaves his feet to throw a punch. It's very comic book-esque. That's not real, but the rest of it looks real. But there's one point where it's like you almost want to see to go back to Batman, you want to see the pow. He actually leaves his feet to throw a punch, and that's a little far-fetched.
Is it the punch that knocks him out, knocks Kleber out?
I don't think it's the one that knocks him out, but it's in that fight that there's a point where to enforce the fact that this is a really strong punch that he leaves his feet.
I was almost afraid that he was going to fall down after he hit Kleber again.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
I'm like, have I forgotten
like
this much of the movie that he falls his ass down again in the ring, and we have another climbing contest to finish a fight?
Well, he did slip at one point.
Mercifully, they don't do that here. And it's a legitimate win for Rocky. I will say, one of the guilty pleasures of this whole movie, I kind of dig the fight between Hulk Hogan and Rocky.
Oh, absolutely.
What drives me insane is the fact that Paulie and Mickey, have they never watched wrestling before? Are they not wise to what wrestling is? They treat it like this is going to be a real fight.
Before the fight, there's no talk between the two fighters for what they're going to do. In fact, who put this match together? I thought Mickey was his manager. I thought he arranged fights. And he's like, why did you agree to this?
I think this was Rocky going... he wants to do this for the charity. I think he got this all for himself. But it begs the question, because what they're doing here is, up until WrestleMania 1, the biggest closed circuit fight in history was Muhammad Ali went over to Japan and fought Inoki, what is now New Japan Wrestling. If you follow wrestling, is like the third largest wrestling company in the world. Inoki ran it. He was the Japanese heavyweight world champion. And to have Muhammad Ali go over and fight him in Japan at the Tokyo Dome was a massive thing. They sold like 100,000 tickets. It's basically what Vince McMahon wanted WrestleMania to end up becoming. And it's the spectacle that WrestleMania 3 became in Detroit. And so this is what they're trying to get at with the boxer versus the wrestler. It's so weird because Mickey, I guess he thinks that Thunder Lips is a real fighter.
So does Rocky.
So does Rocky, yeah.
It's like Thunder Lips didn't wise him up to the business. And this isn't the first time, and won't be the last time, that boxers got into a ring in wrestling. I think they have to be wised up what the whole deal is here. Because basically, if Rocky would have hit Hulk Hogan with some of the punches that he's throwing, bare-fisted, at Hulk Hogan, he would have killed Hulk Hogan. I mean, let's be, if we're being 100 here, but it kind of loses a little bit of the aura of Rocky, or even Sylvester Stallone, because you find out just how short he is.
Oh yeah,
because he barely comes up to the navel of Hulk Hogan. I mean, Hulk Hogan's 6'6". I mean, Hulk Hogan is a specimen at this point in time.
I had to say he was 7 foot tall to make Rocky look
to make
a little
it seem
bit
like
bigger.
Rocky's bigger than he is.
Right.
And yeah, and Hogan he's a legit 6'6", and Sylvester Stallone is Tom Cruise midget sized.
What is he like? He's not 5'9".
He's like 5'6", 5'7". So
I think that's actually considered average height.
Dude, I'm 5'5", so let's be careful on the midget talk here. All right?
But it's legitimate, like almost a foot smaller than Hulk Hogan.
Easily, absolutely.
I mean,
and yet he was able to lift him over the ropes and throw him out of the ring.
And that's another one of the funny things. And this is why it's so shocking that they wouldn't have wizened Rocky up to the business, because even Stallone admits, and he thanked Hulk Hogan for jumping into his arms because he couldn't deadlift Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely
not. So To me, it's fun because Hulk Hogan is, from childhood, is somebody that he's always been part of my entertainment life. It's really cool to see him and Ice-T being in Rocky 3 is part of why I saw Rocky 3. And it was weird because you come into it, you're thinking, oh, it's Hulk Hogan. And it's pre-Hulkamania Hulk Hogan.
Wait, you mean Mr. T, right?
Yeah, Mr. T. Did
Okay,
I say
I'm sorry.
Ice-T?
I was thinking, yeah.
Did I say Ice-T?
You said Ice-T,
You
did
did.
I?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
a
Ice-T.
completely different movie.
You got me thirsty. I was
The
thinking
kids are
like-
calling it Club Lang.
Yeah, that's a completely different movie than if Ice-T's fighting. That's a different
Was
thing.
he in Judgment Night?
No.
It could have been.
What was Ice-T in besides Law and Order SVU?
I think it's
Car
I
Shield
think Law and
commercials.
Now he's doing Cheerios, I think.
Yeah, something.
No,
like
he's
that.
doing those Tide commercials with
Oh,
Cold
yes.
Call. Stone
Yes,
Austin,
the
yeah.
Stone-
Oh, yeah.
Cold
Okay.
Call.
Yeah.
I liked him on Rick and Morty.
Oh yeah. I like this part of it. I think it's fun, even though it's kind of confusing at times. But I think it's a fun little thing, and of course it's for charity.
I don't need Rocky to throw him out of the ring. It
No,
got really
that's
cartoonish.
ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. But let's face it, some of wrestling is ridiculous. But here's the thing: in real life, Inoki pinned Muhammad Ali. The wrestler was still protected.
Wrestlers are tough as nails, man. I mean,
They
wrestlers
can.
and
Oh,
hockey
yeah.
and hockey players. I mean,
Yep.
not to say boxers are not, and boxers get punched more, but I'm just saying don't discount how tough these guys are,
Oh,
especially the old school guys.
yeah, they are athletes for sure. I still love wrestling to this day, so I don't ever doubt that. It's kind of weird to see little bitty Sylvester Stallone throw Hulk Hogan out of the ring.
Yeah, it's
bitty.
a little
Yeah.
weird. This movie has a lot of the rule of cool, where it's like, oh, that was cool, but maybe it doesn't work, and it doesn't move the plot or it doesn't do anything, but it was cool to watch.
Yeah, there's a lot about this movie that's really enjoyable.
The rule of cool. Like it.
This movie, with all its faults, makes up for it in pace. The pace of this movie is perfect.
It's very tight.
It's very tight, which 2 wasn't. 2
Yeah.
was so
Yeah.
boring at times. I mean, I can go and make myself a sandwich and not really miss anything in 2. And I give credit for Sylvester Stallone. He becomes a better director here in 3. Not a better writer. He goes down in the writing aspect, but as far as being a director, this might be his best work as a director.
Interesting.
It's almost like Sylvester Stallone is almost prophetic here because we're right at the edge of Mike Tyson. 1983, he was still an unknown type fighter. The rumblings were there. If you go back to that time, it was a little bit before anything that I would have known about it than 1983. But looking back, if you hear anybody talk about it, 1983, we're right on the fringes of Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson is Clubber Lang. I mean, he was the destroyer.
Except for
Mike
the speaking
Tyson.
voice. The speaking voice is completely different.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
obviously.
And he doesn't have a mouthpiece either,
but-
like a Don King.
I
And-
proved out
but,
the real
I mean,
champion.
But Mike Tyson was that killer. He was a destroyer in the ring. They almost had to cattle prod poor Spinks into the ring to fight him when Tyson won the undisputed heavyweight championship. People were afraid to get in the ring with him. And you get that feeling that that's what Clubber Lang is. And even as Clubber is down, it was eerie for me because when Clubber's down, he's almost down on 2 fists. And that's one of the lasting images I think of when I see Mike Tyson down on the ground after being knocked out by Buster Douglas. And he's searching for his mouthpiece. It's almost identical. It's really, really eerie.
Let's talk
all good.
reviews. Ken, I was going to say, you were already starting to give your review there. Ken, tell us what you think of the movie.
Rocky 3 is a fast-paced, enjoyable romp. We don't have the dialogue, but we have the direction. The montages are great. They give us the information we need, and they're entertaining at the same time. That's what you want a montage to do. You want it to entertain and get you up to date, and he does a great job. It is sad that Adrian's character basically has one scene, and that's basically it. Paulie's made into a racist, unfortunately, and Mickey, I mean, maybe they had to kill him off because he started to become a joke of itself. Mickey is starting to get old, the Mickey character, I think. So I think it's not a terrible thing to get rid of him. The death scene itself, I didn't talk much about it, but I will say this. It was very heavy-handed, but at the same time, I do tear up when Mickey does die. It does what it's supposed to do. Carl Weathers does a great job as Apollo again. I hate the fact that get rid of him after the fourth film because I think at times when it needs something different, Carl Weathers brings that something different to the films. And it definitely shows here in Rocky 3. I love the boxing in here. I love the fast pace of it. I like this even a tad more than Rocky. I'm not saying that this is a better made film, but for entertainment value for myself, Rocky 3 is a tad better. And on that note, I'm going to give it a B+, which I also gave Rocky, but like I said, slightly better.
All right. Justin, what are your thoughts?
I love what he said there about how it's more enjoyable. You know, a lot of the stuff he said is really true. There's pieces of the film that just work so much better. You lose the characters where you lose that sweetness I was talking about with Rocky, and it's like he tries to get it back. Rocky 2, he's like playing with the neighborhood kids and making jokes and stuff. And this one, you're like, who is this guy? Like, you see him on The Muppet Show. That's kind of silly, too. I like that they bring in, like, those real-life aspects of things that happened after Rocky. Like, Paulie goes and sees a Rocky pinball machine, and that was a real thing at the time. I like those aspects. It's kind of meta in that. This is easily one of my favorite Rockies, because I like 4 a lot. I realized I've probably seen 4 the most, but I definitely like this better than 1 and 2. I've got to agree with Ken on this. You know, it's an above average film that I enjoy, and I hadn't seen it before for the first time, and I'm like, wow, I really like this one better than the first and the second. You know, I'm going to go with a B+ as well.
Nice. Ted?
Probably was a little too harsh on Rocky 2, but I don't really think so, because Rocky had built this up and I held it to a standard. And Rocky 3 for me, this hits more feelings. I remember liking as a kid a lot, whereas Rocky 2 really didn't. It has a little bit of a different aspect here for me to toss into my review. I like that this is fast-paced. I think 100 minutes is perfect for this movie. It runs fast and it runs good. And there's never a point where you're like, okay, we need to get past this. Because the moment it starts to get a little bit boring or heavy-handed, which I agree with Ken 100%, the death scene of Mickey is heavy-handed. The acting is not very good. Sylvester Stallone does a very good way here of hiding his faults. Whereas he tried to do something in 2 that he was not, as an actor, was not capable of doing. Here, he hits all the right notes, and it's cut very well. The boxing actually looks like boxing. It has some of the best boxing sequences probably in almost any boxing movie, and it's highly entertaining. And whether or not they were paying homage to certain things like Muhammad Ali's rope-a-dope is kind of what Rocky does to Clubber Lang, and you incorporate some things that are real life into the actual boxing, where it's not just a stand and brawl type of a thing. Any good hero has to have a good villain. And I think that's what happens in Rocky 2. In Rocky, Apollo Creed is the villain. There's no doubt about it. In Rocky 2, there's no villain. You feel kind of bad for Apollo that he's getting dissed, that he didn't really win the fight. You never get the feeling that Apollo's a bad guy. Clubber Lang is a bad guy. He poses a real credible threat to Rocky. You even get to see him beat and knock out Rocky. That makes the whole thing. The reason Batman is so popular as a comic book and as a figure, and why they continue to make movies about him, is because he has the most interesting villains to fight against. I think Clubber Lang rules here. He is awesome. And yes, some of the acting is kind of schlocky, but it doesn't matter here because the movie is entertaining. It tells a good story too. It doesn't try to get too bogged down in the story. So for that fact, I'm giving it a solid B. We're right up there with what I gave Rocky. I'm extremely satisfied with this movie, and I can't wait into the future when we finally do Rocky IV, Rocky Cures Communism. Because that's, like Justin said, that's the one that I've seen the most. Drago is, to me, along with Clubber Lang, the two best villains. And Drago might be one of the best villains in the 1980s schlock movie, a sports movie series.
Very cool. I got to say, this movie, everything you guys said is right on. I can't argue with anything you've said. I love this movie. I love it better than Rocky 1 and Rocky 2. I'm not a real big Rocky 1 fan, which I know throws everyone off. I liked the second one slightly better. Very, very slightly. But this one, this is a home run. Yeah, it's a little schlocky, but this thing moves. This thing is like just a 15-round fight. It just keeps going, and you just want to keep watching and watching and watching. Mr. T, Clubber Lang, is a great actor in this movie. It is a great villain. And you're right, it's a very unique villain because you're rooting for him early on because you're like, you know what, someone needs to teach Rocky a lesson, and he's just going to knock the hell out of him, and he does. With every good guy, if you will, he comes up out of the ashes to win. It's a great movie. It flows well. I love it. I was really, really impressed watching this because I hadn't seen it in decades, to be honest. So I'm really watching this thing with virgin eyes, if you will, almost. Scenes that I forgot, watching it from A to Z. It just had me the whole time. I love the boxing scenes. Definitely very realistic. Definitely very watchable. For this movie, I'm going with Justin and Ken. This is a B+ for me all day. So it looks like all four of us love this one more than the first two. Isn't that weird that the third movie in the series is better than the first two? Very rare.
For a third, yeah, but a sequel, I could usually see like a sequel like Aliens as opposed to Alien, or Terminator 2 as opposed to Terminator. A big Predator 2 fan, just putting that out there, guys. But
Or if we're doing 80s, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is considered one of the best of the Nightmare on Elm Streets.
Did you
That
say
is
Predator
well said.
2?
I like Predator 2, yes.
All right, this is the last time we're going to have Justin on our podcast.
Exactly.
Well, Justin, it's been nice having you
It's been a
around.
pleasure.
Come on, Gary Busey in a meat locker. Come on.
So that's what happened to Gary Busey and why he's so weird.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's what happened. It had nothing to do with dogs and cocaine.
No.
No.
And the fun part about this podcast is celebrating the 40th year of Rocky 3. How's that
Wow.
Crazy.
even possible?
Well, guys, we are old.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what that means.
Yes. All right. Well, that was Rocky 3. I'm glad we all enjoyed talking about this one. What do we have coming up next? What's our next series here?
The next series is going to be my series of movies. It's going to be Quentin Tarantino. And the first movie we're going to do is the masterpiece, Pulp Fiction.
All right.
All right, Frank Whaley.
Yeah, exactly. And because what I'm going to do is I've picked the three movies that I'm going to do. The rest will be put up on Facebook by Ken, and our listeners will be able to choose what the fourth movie of the Tarantino series that I do is going to be. I am going to do Once Upon a Time, Kill Bill, and we're going to do Pulp Fiction.
Now, are we
For
doing just
devote-
Kill Bill 1 or 2?
I'm going by what Quentin has said.
Okay.
Kill Bill 1 and 2 should have been one movie. And we'll talk about it when we do Kill Bill. There was a limited run in Los Angeles of a Quentin Tarantino cut that was 3.5 hours long and was all one movie. And you can't find it anywhere. It's only been seen a handful of times.
But for this podcast, are we doing
But for
just
this podcast, it'll be 1 and 2. It'll be a
both movies.
supersized episode.
super size? That's right. Cool. I'm looking forward to that one. Well, that's all the time we have on Rocky 3 today. Ted, tell us where they can find us out there on the World Wide Web.
We can be found on Twitter at movie_marquee with 2 E's. And whatever podcast version you're listening to us on, whether it be Spotify or Apple, if you could give us a rating and review, that would be wonderful. If you're listening to us on Anchor, thank you for listening to us on Anchor. But the rating and review goes through Spotify and Apple. And if you give us 5 stars, that'll give us an opportunity to be seen by more people. It's an algorithm, and it's very confusing, but it helps.
It's like FICO scores. It's all scientific.
Exactly. Exactly.
Beautiful. All right. What are they saying about us on Facebook, Ken? Hopefully good things.
Well, join us on our Facebook page at the Movie Marquee. Join in the conversation. The last couple of articles we had there, Justin actually provided one of them. 7 of the most underrated comedies of the 1990s. Thank you, Justin, for posting that up there. And
Had
we're
to put
also
Kingpin in there. Yeah.
yes.
Oh, I
and-
love Kingpin.
and
Love
Basketball, one of my favorite movies.
Basketball.
Basketball too. Love that too.
Steve Perry.
I was telling Justin the other day that when me and Eric go play Topgolf, he goes up there and I go, Steve Perry.
Perry, that's right.
It's fun. But the other article that we put out there also is the 30th anniversary of White Men Can't Jump. Hopefully we'll be reviewing that movie down the road because that's one of my favorite.
Ron Shelton classic.
It's a great
Love
movie.
White Man Can't Jump.
Hey, Justin, why don't you plug your podcast one more time? Where can
Shameless
they find
plug.
you?
Shameless plug.
I'll start off with this. To all the listeners out there, what an opportunity this was for me to get just some time in with these guys, because this is my weekly required listening. This is my favorite podcast. I just wanted to thank them for having me on. I am an avid listener. I'm a nerd about this podcast. You could check out my shows, Geek Life HQ at Geek Life HQ on either Twitter or on Instagram. You know, sometimes we do funny stuff on there. Sometimes we do interviews. We had John Rhys Davies, Penelope Spheris, and Bobcat Goldthwait and Dana Gould. So sometimes we get some good people, and then sometimes we make dick and fart jokes. So, you know, you
Those are
choose
always fun.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. Like we had a whole episode about baseball players who had funny names, and there was like a guy named Tony Suck. Yeah, so it's like, you know, it was a good bit. But you can also check out the other shows that I have, the Fantastic Podcast. You can check that out. And also Epic Tales from the Sewers, the Ninja Turtles podcast.
Very cool.
And
I
I'll
hope
just
you
say-
had fun with us.
Yes,
Oh,
thank you so much, Justin, for everything that you've done to help us get out there. We appreciate it.
Thank you
I'll
for
just-
Spaceballs. What? Oh, no.
And I'll just say this isn't going to be the last time we hear from Justin.
All right. Thumbs up from Justin. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you guys listening. Stay tuned. Next time, we're going to be doing, obviously, Quentin Tarantino, kicking it off with the classic Pulp Fiction. What is that, 1992?
1994.
94.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm losing track
Same
of the
year as
years
Gump.
here. That's right,
Yeah.
because the Oscars had their, 27-year anniversary, if I remember right, or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stupid Forrest Gump.
I know. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Have a pleasant tomorrow. We'll talk to you later.
See you at the movies.
See you next time at the Movie Marquee.